Hello and welcome back to Parc Fermé Parlay with Kieran Downey. We're here right after the Dutch GP qualifying session to break down everything that happened from, I can't decide whether it wasn't exciting, I would say. Do you know what? I'd say it was a mild qualifying session. I started off quite bored. I finished on a high. I had a oh Jesus moment in Q2. I'd say it was a bit mid. It seemed to have gone by very quickly. I will say that, but let's just get right into it. Out in Q1 was Logan Sargent, Zhou Guanyu, Valtteri Bottas, Esteban Ocon and Daniel Ricciardo. Now, Logan Sargent did not set a time in qualifying because the mechanics couldn't get his car repaired after his almighty crash in FP3. He was coming out of turn 3, he was using a little bit of the curb, which most of the drivers do. He then just didn't fully rejoin the track, got two wheels onto the grass, lost control of the car, had an almighty crash into the barrier. So lucky that he's okay. That car was pretty much destroyed, caught fire, and we thought there might be a lot of work needed to be done on the chassis. But actually, James Vowles said the chassis wasn't too bad. That was the easy bit, but things like the gearbox were just utterly destroyed. I think that fire just ruined his chances. At one point, it seemed like it might be, he might get up just to do one lap, just to give. I mean, he was never going to be competitive in qualifying, but just maybe to run the car and allow the mechanics to see what's working and what's not. Nah, they couldn't get the car out. So he didn't set a time at all. Zhou Guanyu just couldn't really pick himself up from P19. Like, just couldn't get the car to work for him. What I will say for this qualifying, everybody seemed to be having issues. I don't think anybody felt 100% comfortable in those cars. They were sliding around all over the gaff. A team that seemed very off the pace in FP1 was Ferrari. We'll obviously come into that a little bit more in Q2. Both drivers seemed to struggle a little bit in Q1. The top four for Q1 were separated by 2/10. So like, it's close. So it's very close, and it's something we see throughout all three sessions. Max Verstappen actually, coming on to sliding that we were talking about, Max Verstappen actually had to abort his second lap because he just couldn't get control of the car. Russell was complaining of tyres in Q1. There was a potential impeding incident between Lewis Hamilton and Sergio Perez. Perez was on a flying lap. Lewis was not on a flying lap. He did move as far out of the way as he could. Perez shouting the odds at first, but then in his post-quali interview, Perez had said that, it's wrong place, wrong time. Hamilton did everything he could, but it has gone to the stewards for potential impeding. I don't have, at the time of recording, there's nothing come from the stewards about whether or not Lewis is facing a penalty. If it is an impeding penalty, he's got a 3-place grid drop. So we'll see what happens there. That being said, the incident with Hamilton did mean that Perez had to use a second set of tyres to get himself through. He did actually go quickest in Q1, which was very surprising, but it meant that it kind of screwed up his later qualifying because he didn't have the tyres that everybody else did. Also out in Q1, obviously, was Valtteri Bottas. No real surprise there. Esteban Ocon, very surprised actually, considering Gasly managed to get through to Q3, that Esteban couldn't get out of Q1. He finished the session and was over the radio saying the car felt like an absolute disaster. So a little bit of trouble down at Alpine for Esteban, but Gasly, as I said, made it through to Q3. And then Daniel Ricciardo. I'm not really surprised, to be honest with you, that Danny Rick's out in Q1. Do I expect better from him? Yes. However, when I see some of the names that are out in later sessions, I'm not surprised that Ricciardo has faced issues in trying to get out of Q1. All right, moving on to Q2, and the drivers out were Kevin Magnussen, Nico Hülkenberg, Yuki Tsunoda, Lewis Hamilton, and Carlos Sainz. Am I surprised by Magnussen, Hülkenberg, and Tsunoda? I would say no. However, the fact that they were beaten by Gasly and Alex Albon, I would say, yeah, actually a little bit. Not surprised to see them out in Q2. As I said, everyone is struggling with these cars. Who I am surprised to see out in Q2 is Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz. Now, Lewis Hamilton is actually the one that shocks me more than Carlos Sainz. Carlos hasn't had a lot of running on this track. He had obviously a very weather-affected FP1, so there wasn't great data being brought in for that, especially when we've got a dry quali. He had to retire from FP2 with a gearbox issue. Didn't get any real running in FP3 because 40 odd minutes of the session were red flagged because of Logan Sargent's crash. So he had no real data going into this session, and he struggled with that car. In Q1, I was worried that he was going to be going out. Like, in fact, I was worried both Ferraris were going to be going out because it looked like they were. And they just managed to pop themselves P4, P5. And I was like, here we go, hallelujah. The Ferraris are not actually as bad as what I thought they were going to be. And then Sainz just couldn't get a hold of that car, just couldn't get control of it. It was not responding how he wanted it to. Back end of that car was everywhere other than where Carlos wanted it to be. So I'm not surprised that he's low down the timesheet. I am surprised he's out in Q2, and I'm surprised that he's been beat by Alex Albon and Gasly and, to be honest, the Aston Martins. Lewis Hamilton, my God, I genuinely went into this session being like, the fight for pole position is between the two McLarens, the two Mercedes, and Max Verstappen. Did not think the fight for pole position was going to be between the two McLarens, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, and George Russell. I thought Hamilton was going to be good this weekend. He came into this weekend and into this session being like, I'm feeling good in the car, I'm feeling confident and comfy, and, you know, every time I go into the car, I feel like I'm learning more and I'm understanding it more, and I'm just, you know, me and the car are going to be one and the one with the track. And what happened? I'm so surprised by this. Jesus Christ. I did not think that Hamilton, Lewis Hamilton, and just under that, Carlos Sainz, would be getting beaten by the Aston Martins, Pierre Gasly, and Alex Albon. The Williams. They got out-qualified by a Williams. What is... Zandvoort is throwing all kinds of crazy at us, all right? All right, moving on to Q3, and the order is as follows. In P10, Pierre Gasly, Lance Stroll, Alex Albon, Fernando Alonso, and Charles Leclerc. P5, Sergio Perez. P4, Russell, Piastri, Verstappen, and P1, Lando Norris. First of all, stellar work from Pierre Gasly to get himself into Q3 when Esteban Ocon was having troubles with the car. So, well done, Gasly. He was looking pretty solid this weekend, so just good work from him. Alex Albon getting P8 is just a mega job. Like, mega job. Well done, Albon. It's funny because we've got Alex Albon in Q3 at P8 and we've got Logan Sargent who didn't even make it out of the garage. Like, there's such a disparity between the two of them. So at least there's something for Williams. Are we looking at points maybe for Williams this weekend? I'm going to say yes. I think we are, because it's a qualifiers race, Zandvoort. It's very hard to overtake. And if he can just maintain track position, not do anything stupid, if the weather should hopefully be okay, I think we're looking at a good weekend for Alex Albon. So I'm excited for him for that. A team pairing that was looking pretty decent this weekend is the Aston Martin boys. The Aston Martin looked good. Both drivers seemed comfortable in it. They didn't really see much of them. They didn't complain at all. Just solid qualifying from both of them. Do I think we could be looking at some points for Aston Martin? I think we could. Charles Leclerc in P6. I don't know where he's finding that pace, to be honest with you, because they were struggling. I mean, look at Carlos Sainz, struggling. In Q1, as I said, I was really concerned that they were both going to be out, but apparently not. Charles Leclerc managed to find something. He was obviously a little bit more comfortable with the car, a little bit happier. So now all I need is to just keep it in the points. Keep it in the points, please. I will happily take a P5, P6. Sergio Perez is P5, and I didn't think we were going to get much from Perez, to be honest with you. After the practice sessions, I was like, oh, no, maybe not. And then he topped the timesheets in Q1, and I was like, whoa, could Perez get pole? But no, of course you couldn't get pole. Just good. All round good from Perez. This is where he should be. He should be just a couple positions in and around Max. He's only 4 tenths behind Max. So that's not bad from Perez. If you can have a decent weekend, I know I'm saying like, can Charles Leclerc please just like scoot past him, you know? But can Perez also just have a decent weekend? Because as I said, I'm really tired of talking about how bad Perez is. George Russell, P4. I know in his his after quali interview, he said this is kind of where we are at this track. I disagree. I'm sorry. I thought yous were going to be a lot better. Your practices, you were looking mighty fast. Mighty fast. I genuinely thought that you guys were contenders for pole and you just couldn't pull it out of the bag at quali, which is a strange one. Very strange one, because it is around the same time as your FP2. So they were lightning in FP2. So I just don't know what's happened. What has happened, Mercedes? Please explain, because I'm very, very confused. Do I think you'll be able to do much tomorrow? Maybe. As I said, it's not a great track for overtaking, so I'm not expecting massive things, but just hopefully some decent points for him. And then our top three. Piastri just didn't have it in him to lock out the front row. I mean, he was about, I think he was like a 10th and a half maybe behind Max. Just, to be fair, no complaints from Piastri. No complaints. Max Verstappen couldn't get pole. Neither he could. But you know who could? Lando fucking Norris. Lando Norris absolutely smashed that. That final lap from Lando was absolutely stellar. Mega. Astonishing. Incredible. What a lap. It just all fell into place for him. Just well done, Lando. He's 3/10 ahead of Max. Over 3/10 ahead of Max. That's wild. Absolutely insane. Like, McLaren played an absolute blinder, I will say, by getting through Q1 and Q2 on a set of softs and having 2 sets of fresh soft tyres in Q3 served them perfectly. So well done to McLaren for that. Well done to Lando for taking pole. Well done to Oscar for getting third. Well done to Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly for getting into Q3. Alex Albon especially getting P8. Well done to the Aston Martin boys. Well done to Russell and Leclerc for getting where they did when their teammates couldn't make it out of Q2. Yeah, just actually, do you know something? A pretty decent qualifying session. I know I'm like, oh, it was pretty grim, but actually, it was all right, I would say. An all right quali. So well done to the boys. Well done. Very excited for the race tomorrow now, and we've got a little race on our hands, I would say, between the two McLarens and Max. We've lost a couple of drivers along the way. I would have originally had said Mercedes for this little race that we've got in our hands tomorrow, but alas, maybe not. God, I can't wait for race day tomorrow. But that is everything from us. We will see you after the race tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Love ya. Bye.